Today I'm going to show you how to read music in one easy lesson. And we're going to be starting from the very beginning easy stuff, but quickly building to practice tips, exercises, and even some advanced strategies so that you have the most clear and comprehensive understanding of how to read music. Here we have two staffs, a treble staff and a bass staff. Each staff is made up of 5 lines and 4 spaces in between those lines. And depending on what line or space a note falls on, tells you not only what letter note that is, but where on the piano to play that note. So for example, this note is E, as you'll learn how to figure out here in a minute, and specifically, it's this E right above middle C. It's the perfect opportunity to tell you that when we have notes in the treble clef or the treble staff, that the notes are basically from middle C up on this end of the piano, and they're going to be played mostly 99% of the time with your right hand, which already happens to be up on that end of the piano. The bass clef basically goes at middle C and then goes down this way, as you'll find, and it's going to be played with your right hand. No, it makes sense to play that with your left hand. So an easy way to memorize your notes is to memorize the lines and then the spaces of each clef. The lines of the treble clef from the bottom to the top, this is the most important thing, please do from the bottom to the top, is E, G, B, D, and F. And those notes are right here on the piano. I mentioned this bottom note E was right above middle C. The next note is up G, B, D, and F. If you notice, they skip every other note, and that's going to come into play here in a second. A lot of people like to come up with sayings to figure out these notes faster, and I'm a big fan of that if you're just starting out. The saying I like to use for this one is, every good boy deserves fries. And this note in particular right here is what note? Every good boy, D for deserves, and it's a D, and I'll tell you that this D is up here, and I will obviously explain how to figure that out. So if I have a note on this top line of the staff, what note is that? Well, every good boy deserves fries. And we're starting from here. Every good boy deserves fries. So that F not only is an F, that F is right here on the piano. One really quick thing before we move forward is I'm going to get a question about what this is, and that's called a time signature. You don't need to worry about it for this lesson. Anyway, moving on. Spaces of the treble clef spell face from the bottom to the top, of course. And those notes specifically on the piano are right here, F, A, C, E. Notice how they skip over every other one. Just to make sure you're paying attention, what note is that one? That is A, and specifically, it's right there. Now I want to answer the question is, what if we put the lines and spaces together? So it's like line, space, line, space, line, space. Remember when we were doing all lines, they were skipping every other one, and spaces, same thing, just starting on a different note. But if we put them in all in order, this is what happens. So we have E, next note's F, third note's G, A, B, C, D, E, and then F. So it's literally all the notes in a row from that E to that F. Now time for the bass clef. Just like the treble clef, it really helps to come up with a saying to memorize the lines and spaces if you're just starting out. The lines of the bass clef, from the bottom to the top, of course, are G, B, D, F, A. Or good boys deserve fries always. You can come up with another saying if you want. So if I had a note right here, what note would that be? Well, that would be F, right? Good boys deserve fries. And that's where that F is on the piano. Actually, all of the lines from the bottom to the top start from this G, go up to B, D, F, and then the top line is A. Oh, did you see what we did there? Did you catch it? We're skipping every other note again. So the same concept in the treble clef applies to the bass clef. Spaces of the bass clef, from the bottom to the top, of course, are A, C, E, G, or all cows eat grass. So if I had a note there, I'll give you a second. 1, that note is A, G, right? All cows eat grass. And by the way, that bottom note A is right there on the piano. Cows eat G, grass, right there. We're going to move on to some practice here in a second, but first thing I want to mention is first line of the treble clef starts here. First space of the treble clef starts here. I would memorize that because remember the lines go from here and spaces go here. So long as you know what note the staff starts on at the bottom, you'll be able to figure out the other notes a lot easier. For the bass clef, you got to be more careful because it's lower on the piano. The lines of the bass clef start on this G. Keep note that this G is 2 Gs below what we call middle C, and those are the lines, and the spaces start on this A right here. So lines of bass clef will start on G, spaces will start on A. Now you may have noticed in this lesson I say the term middle C a lot, and I want to show you where middle C is on the treble clef and the bass clef because that will help you understand how they're both related a lot better. So here's middle C in the treble clef. As you can see, it's not on the staff at all, but you're still going to see a lot of them. And you notice even when we go down to middle C, so here's E, there's D, and there's C, that we need to add a line so that we can keep track of where we are. Those are called ledger lines, and I'm going to teach you how to master those later on. But I really want to tell you that middle C treble clef is there. Middle C with bass clef is there. This is the point where the two clefs converge, and that's why I said that treble clef is up here, bass clef is down here, based on middle C. So this note in the treble clef, and this note in the bass clef are the exact same note. So when you start moving up past middle C in the bass clef, you start to move into treble clef territory. So this D here is actually that D there. If you move up one here, you're going to move up one here, and both of those are E. Same thing if you move below middle C with the treble clef, you start to move into bass clef territory. And then if you move down to, like, say A, that's the same as that A. Now, is it okay for the right hand to play that A? Well, certainly, especially you could very well have bass notes down here. So it's totally okay for the bass clef to go into the treble clef a little bit, like left hand into the right hand area and right hand into the left hand area. But just letting you know that they both converge on that middle C. Guess what? It's everybody's favorite time, quiz time. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. I'm going to give you 5 seconds for each of them, and you got to tell me what note you're going to play and try to find where on the piano to play that note. Are you ready? Let's do a couple treble clefs, shall we? What note is that? 3, 2, 1. And that was 5 seconds. That note is A. Remember, it's the second space in the treble clef. The first space is here with that F, and therefore that note is right there. Let's try another one. What about that note, top line of treble clef? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're out of time. That note is F. Is it right here? Well, remember that it's kind of high up on the staff, so this F is right there. And if remember, where on the piano is the first line of the treble clef? Remember I said a minute ago it was right here. And remember we skip E, G, B, D, and F, and that's just a way to kind of check your work, make sure you're in the right spot. Question, bonus question. I first suggested maybe that F was the right one, but then I said it wasn't. Where is that F on the staff? That F is on the bottom space. And as you can see that there's a space on the keyboard, and that space is also reflected on the sheet music between those two notes. And we call that distance, specifically where you're playing F and F, or G and G, A and A, we call that an octave, because those two notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, are 8 notes apart. So octave, octopus, 8 tentacles, octave, 8 notes.
Yeah, look at the 8.
Octopus has 8 legs.
Let's do 2 more. Here, you have 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, a 2, a 1. That note is F. Remember, good boys deserve fries. And we're starting from that G, G, B, D, F. And there's your F. Where would this F be down here? Well, we haven't actually talked about it yet. But we have a note that's pretty close to it, right? We knew that G's right there. And guess what? If you have a note that's on the line and you move down one space, you just move down one note on the piano keyboard. I really got to make sure you're paying attention. What note is this? I'm not even going to give you 5 seconds. You ran out of time. The note is middle C. Remember, that's where the two converge. Okay, now to talk about these things. You've seen this, and if you call this a hashtag, I'm very upset with you. I'm just kidding. It's called a sharp. And what a sharp does is you would normally play that note. So what note would this be without the sharp, first of all? Bottom space, treble clef, first letter in face. That's going to be F right there. Remember, pretty close to middle C. And then we're going to sharp it. And you sharp it by moving up one tone directly up and to the right. Now, let me explain that you got to be careful with certain sharp notes, right? So say we have A sharp. There's A. A sharp is just one up and to the right, and that's totally fine. You know, we had F sharp here, which was a black key, A sharp here, which is a black key. And you got to be careful, because what if we had like B sharp, right? Well, let's see, every good boy. So there's where we are in the piano. We're going to go up and to the right, but there's not a black key in between here this time. What do we do? Well, remember, I said one tone, there's just one note up on the piano, up and to the right. So therefore, B sharp actually looks like C on the piano. They are technically different notes, and we could get into the theory of that. But B sharp looks identical to C, and we call those enharmonic equivalents, if you want to get in depth about that. Another place you got to be careful is E sharp. So here's E. You go up to E sharp. Oh no, there's not a black key there. But remember, I just said one tone up and to the right, and that is E sharp, which looks exactly the same as F. Quickly, I want to say that, so when you move up on the keyboard and you're playing all the notes in between, we call that moving up by half steps. And a lot of people also call them semitones. So from now on, I'm going to say half steps or semitones. Okay, I got to teach you about the sharp rule. And it works like this. When you have a sharp early on in the measure, right? We're always reading music left to right, like you read English. And we have a sharp earlier in the measure. Here's the rule. Pay attention, because this is important. And whenever you have more of that same note in the same measure, so see how we have F sharp, and then we have two more Fs? It's automatically implied that these two Fs are also sharped. So instead of, well, I'll just play it right. So here's what it will look like. So we have F sharp, G, and they look like normal Fs, but remember the rule, F sharp, F sharp. And then when you get into a new measure, that cancels out. So you don't have to worry about it, because this note would then be what's called an F natural. And as you can see, the notation software even wrote a natural in there, which I'll teach you about in a second. So remember that whatever sharped in the beginning of the measure, it affects everything after that sharp of the same letter. So only Fs are affected if you have F sharps. Now say we have an F sharp here. The question is, does it affect that one? And the answer is no, because it doesn't affect the ones that come before it, only the ones that come after. So this one would still be F sharp. The opposite of a sharp is a flat. And you can think of a tire. When it goes flat, it does what? It goes down. And so normally, if you didn't have the flat here, what note would this be? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're out of time. Every G. There it is. And this is a G flat. So we're going down one semitone or half step. You remember what that is, right? And that's how it works. You just got to be careful. Same thing, that when you get to like F flat, so here's F, and remember there's no black key there, so you're just going down one semitone. F flat looks identical to E. Same thing with C flat, will look identical to B. What is the fancy word for that? Well, you'll have to go back and watch again. On to the next part. Flats and sharps work exactly the same in the bass clef too. So here's E flat that we have. Next note is F, right? Good boys deserve fries. And then what note is this? If you said E, you're totally wrong, because it's E flat. So the sharp rule, remember when we had a sharp note earlier in the measure, it affects all notes of the same letter after that sharp. Same thing with flats. We have E flat here, and because we have another E flat right here, or another E right here, it's automatically flat. Now, question. What if the composer, and unfortunately the software told you the answer before, what would we use if we wanted to make that a regular E? And we use this symbol called a natural. It's kind of like a sharp if you dropped it on the floor and the ends broke off. There's a lot more to reading music that, of course, we're going to cover coming up. But first, I want to show you how to practice everything we talked about so far. First, go to musictheory.net and then click on Exercises. Click on Note Identification. And then at the top of the page, click on this little gear. Now, this is very important. So here you can select the clefs you want to practice. If you want to select both at once, you can do that. Or if you just want to practice treble clef or just practice bass clef, you can do so. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 5 treble clef examples and then 5 bass clef examples. And I'm going to give you 5 seconds for each one. Now, here's the second important part that I just missed. Make sure that your range is only the notes on the staff, because that's the only ones we've talked about so far. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This note is an E, right? But where on the piano is this note? Remember that I said lines of the treble clef start here, spaces of the treble clef start here, so our note must be E right there. Next one, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This one is 4th line of the treble clef, E, G, B, D. So you're starting from here, E, G, B. The note we need is right there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're making this easy for us. This is the 2nd line of the treble clef. Remember, E's here, and G, the one we need, is right there. So when you go through these on your own, make sure you're also finding them on the piano. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's B, E, G, B. That one right there. Now we're going to do 5 bass clefs. And when you change the clef, you're probably going to have to change the range again, so just be careful of that. 3, 2, 1. Do you have it? It's the top line of the bass clef. Remember, lines of the bass clef start way down here on G, and they go G, B, D, F in the top line, A. And that makes sense since it's pretty close to middle C. And remember that middle C was just on that ledger line right above the staff. So we got A right there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This one is B. So remember I said G starts there. B is the 2nd line of the bass clef. We're going to do 3 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This one, they're giving us lines again. G, B, D. They all love the lines today. There's the F that we need. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Remember, the spaces of a bass clef are all cows eat grass, starting from this A right here, so all C for cows. Last one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What is this one? This one's E. Remember, all cows eat, just like that. Ideally, you want to do 50 of these a day. Yes, really. I would do 25 treble clef, 25 bass clef, and then once you get really good at those separately, then try doing them together. It's time for ledger lines. Now, a lot of students overcomplicate ledger lines, but I'm going to give you 4 rules right now to master your ledger lines in just a few minutes. Rule number 1, the lines of a clef are the same as the spaces going up off the clef starting from the top space. And here's what this means. We have our lines of the treble clef, E, G, B, D, F, and we have our spaces of the treble clef going up from that top space, like I said, and they are the same notes. So if this is E, G, B, D, and F, this is E, G, B, D, and F. It's just on the piano, at least, an octave higher. The original lines are E, G, B, D, F, and these ones are E, G, B, D, F. And of course, we need all those ledger lines to keep track of those notes way up there. And you can use that to your advantage to figure out any note that's on a ledger line. For instance, this one, right? We know that that's E, G, and that one must be B. The exact same is true for the bass clef. Just remember the bass clef lines are G, B, D, F, A, and these are G, B, D, F, A. Just remember to start from that top space just like I said. Rule number 2, the spaces of a clef are equal to the lines going up off the clef, starting from, yes, the top line. So here we can see that we have our spaces of the treble clef, F, A, C, E. And guess what these are? F, A, C, E. Same with the bass clef, just different notes. A, C, E, G, A, C, E, G. Okay, now we're going to flip it. Rule number 3. The lines of a clef are the same as the spaces going down off the clef in reverse order, starting from the bottom line. Let me show you what I mean. So here we have the opposite. We still have our lines of the treble clef, right? E, G, B, D, F from bottom to the top. But now you got to be careful because think about it. We're counting down this time. We're not going up like we were, before, like that. So you got to be careful. We're actually going in the reverse order this time. So this one is actually F. And E is all the way down here. It would actually be E, G, B, D, F. And if you're counting notes going down, it helps to be able to say it backwards as well. F, D, B, G, E. Same with the bass clef. Just keep in mind it's different notes, but it's the same thing. You're just going in reverse order. So instead of going G, B, D, F, A, you're really going A, F, D, B, G, A, F, D, B, G. Last ledger line rule, can you guess what it is? It is the spaces of a clef are equal to the lines going down off the clef, starting from the bottom line, in reverse order because we're going down again. And here we have it. We have F-A-C-E once again, and we have F-A-C-E down here. You just got to remember to go in reverse order because they're really lined up like this. And the same with the bass clef. Just remember to use the bass clef letters, A-C-E-G. Okay, now I'm going to introduce you to some more advanced reading strategies so that you can read music super fast. So once you're able to read the notes on and off the staff, you want to start looking at music in terms of intervals. And an interval is the distance between two notes. So if we have a note and then we play the next note, that's an interval of a second. 1, 2. If you have a note, you skip a note, and then you hit another note, that's what we call a third. And you can just count the notes on the outside and in between. 1, 2, 3. Where, if I started on E, where would a fifth be? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. And by using intervals, it gives your brain more information to go on so that you can read notes a lot faster. And of course, I'm going to show you how that's done. First, I want to show you what these will look like on the sheet music because this is very important. So this is a second. You have E and then the very next note F like that. And what I want to tell you is that all even number intervals, this is very important, all even number intervals, 2, 4, 6, 8, do not match. And what I mean by that is that if one's on a line, the other's on a space. If one is on a space, the other one is going to be on a line. So they do not match. So right away, you know that that's an even number interval because they don't match. If they did match, you know that that's an odd number interval. So how about that? So odd number intervals do match. A second is so close together that they actually have to stack them on top of each other. It's the only one like that because if I move it up, as you can see, it kind of starts stacking like a snowman. It makes a little bit more sense. So you know a second right away, especially if it's being played together, also called harmonically, because they shift them over like that. A fourth, you can see that they don't match, right? But you can see that there's a little bit more of a gap, obviously a lot more of a gap than with the second. So you know if they don't match, there's a little bit of a gap in there, you know that you're probably talking about a fourth. So starting from E at the bottom, here's a second, here's a fourth, and there's a sixth. And a sixth, they match or don't match? They don't match. Remember, it's even number intervals. It might be opposite of what you think. Even number intervals don't match. You know that it's even further apart than what a fourth is, so you must know that that's a sixth. And an octave almost takes up the entire staff, but remember, it doesn't match because it's an even number interval. An octave is 8, by the way. So if you did this, a lot of people think that looks like an octave, but no, that's actually a ninth. Remember, they can't match. Remember that. Now you may be asking yourself,
Tim, how does this help me read music faster?
well, let me show you. So you had these two notes, and of course you could use my little ledger line trick to figure out what this is. But there's an even easier way, right? Remember, first of all, do these notes match? Meaning if it's line in line or space in space. The answer is, of course, yes. They're both on a line, so you know that that's an odd number interval. I know that that top note right there is F. I remember that from our every good boy deserves fries type of thing. And I know that a fifth above F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is C. And by the way, an easy way to play a fifth almost anywhere, this works pretty much for everybody. You put your thumb on a note, you put your pinky, you like lay the rest of your fingers like that, you play your pinky naturally where it hits, and that should give you a fifth almost every time. But this helped me figure out what that top note was. Sorry, it was a C, because I knew that it was a fifth above F. Let's do another example. Say I have this wacky note pattern down here. You will see stuff like this sometimes. Now I'm going to use intervals to quickly figure out these notes. Well, I know that this is a D, right? Since E is right there. So D, and how far apart are these, do you think? They don't match, right? And they're not super close together, right? A second would be like literally right there. So this must be a fourth. So if I play D, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my next note down. And then how many interval between, what is the interval between this note and this note? Well, this note we know is A, because it's a fourth down. And this is another fourth down, right? Because they don't match. They're a little further apart. So our notes are E, A, and D. And now you're like,
Tim, how do I practice my intervals?
well, of course, I'm going to show you that right now. We're going to our favorite website of all time, Piano Lessons on the Web. Oh, just kidding. musictheory.net, our second favorite website of all time. And we're going to go this time down to, where do you think? Interval identification. Same thing as last time. You want to go up to this little gear up here. And you only want to select, I mean, you might be better at the ledger lines by now, but select what range that you're comfortable with. Very important here, you want to make sure that you don't have any key signatures selected. That's kind of a little bit more of an advanced topic for where we're at. So you just want to make sure that top one's selected. You want to make sure that require quality is off. And then just make sure that your intervals selected are the ones that you know about. Okay, just like before, we're going to do 5 examples of these, and I'm going to give you 5 seconds for each one. Are you ready? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What interval is this? Hopefully you said a fifth, right? Because remember, they match. It must be an odd number interval, and it's a little bit further apart, so we know that that's a fifth. It also helps to find these notes on the piano, by the way. This one, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is easy. Remember I said when they're so close together that they got to like sandwich them between each other or to the side, you know what I mean? That's always a second. And specifically it's between E, that top space, and the top line. Music to my ears. Next one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is another fifth, just starting on a line this time. So we got a line, no line, that would be a third, and then a line, E and A. What is this one? I got it wrong because I thought it was fifth. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, it's line and line. You know that it must be an odd number interval, and they're fairly close. So I would say that it's a third, and we got it right that time. Oh, we know. Wait, what is this one? I'm not even going to give you 5 seconds. It's a second. Last one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is the perfect one to end on. They don't match. So it's an even number interval, right? And we know that our bottom note's C. And this one, it's not close enough to be a second, so it looks like a fourth to me. And checking my notes, we do indeed have it correct. Another thing I highly recommend you use when learning to read music is the concept of landmarks. Concept of landmarks, very simple. It's just a note that you can grab a hold of right away. That as soon as you see it on the sheet music or the piano, you go, that's an E, right? Immediately. And for me, the anchor notes that I like to use, or the landmarks, are E and E. And I can remember those really easily just because it's the bottom line and the top space. I'm also really good at remembering where G and G are, at least when I first started. Now I know where they're all at. of course. So I recommend using those as landmarks to begin with because that works for a lot of students. A lot of students like F and F because it's the bottom space, top line. So the whole goal is, though, say we memorize where our Fs are. Say you have this note pattern. What notes are these? Well, if I know where F is all the time, I know, oh, that's G because it's right above F. There's E right below F. And there's A right above F. So using F as a landmark, I can quickly figure out where the other notes are in relation to F or G or whichever ones you like to use. Like I said, I think the great place to start is with the bottom line, top space, or bottom space, top line. Once you're able to read notes on the staff, you're able to do intervals. The next thing, of course, is pattern recognition. Instead of looking at notes as individual notes, you want to start looking at them in terms of groups because that will allow you to read notes much faster. I would be on the lookout for things like chords. That's why it's important to learn your chords, right? Because that just gives my brain, I automatically know my chords, so I don't really have to think about those notes individually. I would look out for arpeggios, which is basically a chord, but it's being played notes separate. I would look for scale patterns. Oh, there's a D minor scale. Helps me fill out those notes right away. And oh, I have more arpeggios. Now, of course, you need to learn your arpeggios and scales, which I have plenty of lessons on, of course. And of course, you're interested in those types of things, right? So just to recap, you want to be on the lookout for chords, scales, and arpeggios mostly. And by learning those, that will give you a huge advantage in reading music fast. There's only a few more things about note reading I want to tell you, and then stick around to the end where we actually have the final tip, the most important tip. And actually, I'm not making that up. I am serious. Stick around for that one. But for now, let's get on to the next thing, which is key signatures. You ever seen these before? You probably have before your music begins. And I'm just going to introduce you to these right now. What key signatures tell you is what notes are sharped or flatted consistently throughout a piece of music. So here we have two sharps. If you drew a note right here, what note would it be? That would be C, right? What about right there? E, G, B, D, F, right? So you got C and F. So that tells you that every F and every C in the whole piece is sharped unless they tell you otherwise with a natural. So here, let's make a collection of notes here. So here, it's basically just the lines of the treble clef, A, C, E, and then we got that final line F. But we got to be careful that actually we have sharps in here, right? So anytime we have a C, it's going to be C sharp. So we're replacing with regular C, or C natural as we call it, with C sharp. So you won't be playing C's and C sharps, just C sharp. You're replacing it. You got E, and then is this last note F? No, no, no. It's actually F sharp. And there are a lot of key signatures. But they can be, let me show you this one thing about key signatures, is that they can either be in sharps, going all the way up to 7 sharps, or flats, but not both. You won't see a key signature with both sharps and flats. So with this key signature, what would these notes be? Well, I'll tell you right now that the flats we have are B, E, A, and D. And so anytime we have an A, that's got to be flat. So it's B, E, A, and D. So we don't have to worry about the C. We have an E flat, right? B, E, A, D. And we don't have to worry about the F. So it'd be... We're almost ready for the final tip. But before that, I want to say if you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comments section. I will either address them in a future video, but I have an even better idea. I'm going to start addressing them in future live streams. So during the live stream, I'm going to go back through these videos, pick up some of these comments, and answer them then. So it's another incentive to also take a look at the live streams coming up. I just remembered before the final tip, it's coming, I promise. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you to everybody that supported the channel over the years, from the mods to the regular watchers to people that enroll in courses over on my website, pianolessonsontheweb.com. Thank you so much. We wouldn't have been able to reach as many people as we have without your support. Finally, on to the final tip that I've been promising you. So in this lesson, I talked about some advanced note reading strategies like intervals and things like that to read notes really fast. There's actually a lot more we could have done with that in this lesson, but it's just really how to read music. So if you want to learn a lot more and you want to truly master learning to read music, you want to check out this next lesson right here, which is the fastest method to reading music, where we're going to go into more details about all this interval and pattern recognition stuff. So watch that one next. Thank you so much for coming by. Your piano teacher Tim here, and I'll see you next time.